So this comes back to the shocking, obvious, but not so obvious knowledge that you can make a choice, that you don't have to be miserable. And if you've had a lot of trauma in your life, that can be almost impossible to see. It just doesn't even enter in that you have that you can make a choice. It just, I don't know, it's like blindness. You just can't see it. You're blind to it. And that's what makes it so difficult and what makes us perpetuate um, very difficult relationships or very difficult situations. We just feel like I just have to endure this because I can. I survived my difficult childhood. I'm just going to survive this. And the thing is, the sad thing is, you don't have to. Here, I'm giving you a get out of jail card. I'm giving you a get out of jail getting a relationship card. I mean, I'm not saying you should just leave relationships, but it's so liberating to realize that you don't have to stay either. That you have a choice. Sometimes when you realize you have a choice, you still choose to stay, but it's very different to feeling like it's not an option. You just gotta stay in there, grinding away, being ground away. And, relationships are a bit like stones, the moss grows over them, and they feel like they're very hard to dislodge. And you feel like, oh, but there's disruption. Maybe there's kids involved. Maybe there's communal property. There's history. There's years of history. There's familiarity. There's, it's mostly good. My spiritual teacher, Barry Long, used to say, being in an unloving relationship or a relationship that there isn't enough love in is like being like having a dog that only bites you every now and then. And it's a great image of like, yeah, it's like, well, am I worthy having a dog that never bites me? Because I have dogs, friends, they've never bitten me. If they did, I'd look at them differently. I'd relate to them differently. So being in a relationship where you never know whether you're going to get bitten or not, that's awful. It's awful for you, and it's awful. You can be sure the other person is miserable as well because they wouldn't be biting you otherwise. So this idea of it's so hard to if you've had trauma to open up this possibility that you have a choice. But doing it is very liberating. It ventilates the relationship. It ventilates the situation, the job, whatever. We always have a choice. It feels like we don't. And everything kind of conspires to make us feel like we don't. We have to do this and we have to do that and we have to. And you don't have to do anything. You really don't have to do anything. And knowing that brings you into ownership of the choices that you're making. I like the money. That's why I'm doing this job. I want the money. Yeah, I don't like the job. But I don't have to do it. I don't have to do it because I have to pay rent. I'm paying rent because I like living in the place I live. I'd like to be paying less rent, or I'd like to be my mortgage to be less, but I chose it. I chose this, and I can choose it not to have it. Yes, there'll be consequences, for sure, and I'm choosing not to have those consequences. But it's so liberating when you can come into, I have a choice. I'm not here to be miserable. Nobody wants you to be miserable. Who wants you to be miserable? Nobody does. Even your difficult parents didn't want you to be miserable. In their weird kind of, they're processing their stuff. They wanted you to be happy in spite of everything they did to you or the terrible things that happened to you. Nobody wants you not to be happy. So you're not going to let anybody down by being happy. You're not going to let anybody down by just walking away from things that make you miserable or choosing not to be places that make you miserable. Okay? Now, the people around you may not get that, particularly, if it's a partner kind of thing and you go, you know what, we gave it a good try, but it's not working. So let's either make it work or let's be happy. Why don't we do that? Why don't we make that our focus, you know? I mean, in a love, intimate relationships, I'm a bit ruthless like that. I'm a bit like, if it's not for love, what are we doing? Like, it has to be about love, because that's all that's left, you know. We're difficult. We're difficult to live with, you know. The nicest people are difficult to live with eventually. Eventually, we're all difficult to live with. So if there's not love, if we're not going deeper into love, then what's the point, you know? What's the point of being together if it's not for love? And if you bring that everything back to that, then everything gets easier. I mean, it can get a lot more difficult because you have to have the difficult conversations and the disturbances, and you know, you have to say the things that you don't want to say because you don't want to bring it up and all this kind of thing. So in one way it can get more turbulent, but it's got vitality. You know, how many people do you know, couples that are together and they're dead? They're both like the walking dead. The love is dead between them, and they're just together for convenience because they're afraid to be on their own. They're afraid. They've got all these reasons why they're together, and none of the reasons are love. And how, like, just, you know, life goes by so quickly. And to just spend all that time being not as happy as you could, it's sad. It's really sad, because every now and then you come across an older couple. They've been together for, you know, 50 years or whatever, and they're still hot for each other. They're still passionate for each other. They're still sparky. I don't mean the ones that are fighting all the time, but there's still an electricity between them. And they're, you know, you can tell that they've gone deeper and deeper into love. That's such a beautiful thing. There's so much vitality in that. But it's not easy, and it's not the norm. The norm is the slow leaching away of the love, you know, because it requires a huge amount of consciousness and effort to keep coming back to the love, to keep bringing everything back to the love, because the world is kind of geared up for everything else is more important, and it's not. You know, when you are on your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking about the emails you sent, the tennis matches you won, the golf rounds that you won, the letters that you wrote, the achievements you got in work, the car. None of that stuff is going to be on your mind. What will be on your mind, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure what's going to be on your mind is, and what's going to be on my mind is, how well did I love? How did I express it? You know, how did I go with it? Because love and consciousness, they're the same thing. And they're, as far as I can see, the only things that go with us. Because in the mystery, there's still love. You know, everything else disappears, but love stays. So, if you've been traumatized, I encourage you to, look at it, look at this idea of, entertain the idea of, try it on, the idea of, I have a choice here. I have a choice with my friends, my parents, my family, my, you know, either my parents' kind of family or my partner and my children. I have a choice with it all. Just entertain that. I can choose to not have any of this. I'm not saying you do that, but just see what it feels like. And if it feels disturbing, and it probably will if you have been traumatized, then that'll give you an indication of, it's a lot of things are happening because of the trauma, not because of that's what you really want. And then you can begin to go and get help to begin to, you know, get rid of the trauma, to help or work through it, so that it's not running you, that you're not still in survival mode, because, you know, active trauma, meaning if you're still operating from it, is this feeling of, I'm still trying to survive my childhood. It's like, but you're 50 years old. You're 30 years old. You obviously survived. And it's almost like, shh, I'm very busy surviving. You know. So it's to sort of get your system to stand down from that.